What's up, guys? Welcome back to another podcast. And just like the last one, I put a disclaimer in the last podcast. This is going to be an ongoing thing for the next two, because just to fully recap, I filmed 3 podcasts at once. Cannot find the audio for the life of me, and I think it's gone. I've tried everything, gotten help. I've tried looking for it everywhere. I cannot find the last 3 podcast audios, so I want to personally apologize to people listening at home, watching, and also my guests. This kind of opens the door to do it again. And I am in these 3 weeks when I decided to backlog and everything went wrong. I'm doing my research. I'm taking care of things. Overall, just making things easier for the podcast and the viewers, and most importantly, my guests, and also people who support me, because everybody's important to me. I would take full responsibility for this, and it won't happen again. Well, it will next week. But just a little heads up, the audio in this podcast is coming from the camera and not the microphones, so it's a little off. It's a lot off. So I do apologize, and thanks for watching or listening.
I've always been fascinated by mental health, and that triggers the predisposition to an eating disorder. So we shouldn't really be giving dieting advice to anybody. I have to have that really hard conversation a lot where I have to tell people, there is no cure.
I'm going to put Nicki's not her name in the title.
Welcome
back to the podcast. It's episode 28.
Nicki's not her name.
Today I am meeting Miss Chris Nicole Ramos, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And you want to say context, what your profession is?
Yeah. So I am a therapist, but I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I am also a certified eating disorders specialist. And we are currently sitting in the building of our private practice. So we just moved into this building. First podcast in the building. A lot of firsts tonight. We had Whataburger in another room earlier. On the floor.
That's
Because
awesome.
there's no furniture in the room yet. But yeah, that was fun.
So, I don't know if you've answered this when we were talking about it. We had a long conversation about why eating disorders. Or what made you get into this field? There you go.
Into the field, or eating disorders specifically?
Both.
Mental health in general. I think I don't know. I've always been fascinated by mental health, but I think where we're from, though, that's not something that is typically talked about. So when I chose a career path, or wanting to go to school in the first place, I didn't initially go to school for mental health stuff. I went to be a nurse because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of off the record, I wanted to be a rock star. Can't play an instrument, but I was yeah, my parents said you're gonna go to college instead. It's a true story.
Wait, why rock star?
I don't know. I wanted to.
Who did you like that made you want to be a rock star?
The fame. People shouting my name. I don't know.
No, artists though?
Post Malone. Well, Post Malone wasn't really a thing when I was younger.
Yeah, he's 2016.
Yeah. I really love Joan Jett, so I was I just want to be a rock star.
You never got good at Guitar Hero?
No, I was really bad at guitar.
You know what Guitar Hero I had?
Bad at guitar in real life, bad at guitar,
I had a Guitar Hero, and I'm glad Brandy's here being on camera. The only Guitar Hero we had growing up was a Hannah Montana Guitar Hero. There was 3 buttons, and it was just all the Hannah Montana songs.
Was it actually playing?
Yeah. And it wasn't the flick on the Guitar Hero. It was a tap.
Oh.
Anyway, shout out to that game.
Shout out Hannah Montana Guitar Hero.
Now, going back to it, it always fascinated you.
Yeah, mental health always really fascinated me, but again, where we're from, we don't really talk about mental health stuff. So I went to school to be a nurse, hated it, almost dropped out my first year.
Why'd you hate it?
I don't know. I just wasn't into the whole there's a million different patients you have to see, and nurses are overworked, and you don't actually get to build a relationship with the patients. It's go, do the things, and that may not be the whole nursing profession, so shout out to nurses, love you. But for me, it kind of just felt I wasn't able to sit down and get to know a patient, and I think that's what kind of made me realize that I wanted to have relationships, more meaningful conversations with people, and that was where I was oh, it kind of sounds like therapy or social work, right? So that's kind of what made me make the switch instead of drop out of college altogether. I just made the switch switch to social work.
Yeah, a couple nurses that I know that's like they experience like life-changing stuff every day, like at the hospital, and it's just crazy how numb they are to it. So like shout out to nurses. I don't know. I could not do
Shout
that.
out to nurses.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it came with time.
Mm-hmm.
They're just that's how much experience and I guess only word is experience, but they've had at their job. So I get what you mean though. You wanted to meet people more like personally and build like a relationship.
Yes, I wanted to like, and I think I was less interested in like the physical part of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have like a broken bone, or oh, like I have a fever, blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I was more interested in like what was going through their minds, like when all of that was happening.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you lead towards eating disorder? Is that your favorite like thing in terms of like that whole field?
I love treating eating disorders. Like that's all I talk about is eating disorders. Like I like to say that I've devoted not only my career but like a really big part of my life to eating disorder work and advocacy and all of that. I'm real cool at parties, Brandon, because I talk about eating disorders. People are like, oh, the girl talks about eating disorders.
When people were drinking, eating chips, and like at a barbecue, you're like, oh, that's really bad.
Like, no food is bad. No food is bad. Is what I preach.
So was it like a gradual thing that got you into eating disorders, or is it just like one day something just happened? You're like, this is fucking cool.
Honestly, I feel like I avoided eating disorder like work for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of like dodged it. I felt like it was going to be like too much for me. Like I thought it was going to bring up like feelings, and it does. It really does. I thought it was going to just be like triggering to like my own recovery and like my own work that I did and getting to a good place with that. So I really tried to avoid it as best as I could, but the universe brought us together, and it was just meant to be.
And now you have your own facility.
Now,
like your own place.
yeah, now we're here, and that's really all. Not all, because like, you know, with eating disorders comes like a lot of co-occurring stuff. Like it's super like common to have co-occurring illness like anxiety, depression, trauma, all of that stuff. So
because that links to eating disorders. I think you were telling me about it over there. Like,
yeah, I think that, you know, eating disorders are typically like a manifestation of like something deeper, right, or like something else that's going on beneath the surface.
What do you think is like the biggest form of eating disorder that you've encountered? Like the most common, I should say.
Well, the most common eating disorder is binge eating disorder. Right, so we see that a lot in the United States. So that's actually, but I will say, even though it's the most common, people with binge eating disorder are less likely to get treatment because of like the shame of being in larger bodies. So we gotta talk about binge eating disorder more. We gotta like normalize like being in a larger body, so that people can seek the help that they need.
And you were talking about this, and I wanted to ask you again about bodybuilders.
But bodybuilders.
And athletes.
Bodybuilders and athletes.
So do you see a lot of athletes?
Yes, we do see a lot of athletes.
Really?
Yeah, I see a lot of athletes. And I think like when it comes to treating athletes, it can be really complicated because we're not in any way trying to like take the athlete away from their sport. Like we encourage you to be able to go back to your sport. We want to work with you so that you could continue to do the thing that you love. A lot of people like, you know, are on scholarship to like do what they love doing, and so it could be really complicated though. Like if you're very malnourished, if you're very underweight, because you know we want you to take a step away from your sport, which is a big part of your identity. So you are asking someone to, you know, take a momentary step away from that to focus on healing, which is not easy to do.
Because let me say, I was gonna lead somewhere. I had it. I think I was gonna ask, out of 10 people, how many of those are athletes that you see? How common is it?
I mean, I wouldn't say like, oh, like out of this like 10 people, like I would say like every now and then, like I would like treat an athlete, but they're not like all coming through the door. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that like all athletes have like eating disorders or anything like that. But I think there's like a big percentage of them. You know, I see like gymnasts, dancers, swimmers. And so I think that like what those things have in common is that there is a really big focus and spotlight on your body. And so I think that the majority of athletes that I have actually seen have all, there's been like a big focus on like your body is in the spotlight. Like as a gymnast, like there's, you know, certain things that you have to wear. As a dancer, as a swimmer, like you're showing a lot more of your body to people. You're showing a lot more of your body for people to judge. So.
Makes sense. And so we're, I haven't said it on camera, but we're in San Antonio, 4 hours away from my home.
Our home.
Our home. Sorry, you live here now. I'm sorry.
I do.
I'm sorry.
You can take the girl out of the valley. You can't take the valley out of the girl, Brandon. How dare you?
I want to ask how the demographic of patients has changed, because down south, you know how bad eating is. I mean, everything's bad down there.
Nothing's bad. What do you keep getting to the camera? Nothing. There's no such thing as bad food.
What do you mean by that?
We love Whataburger in here.
Because you said that twice. I want to know, like, deeply what you mean by that.
Well, in the eating disorder community, in the eating disorder world, we don't believe in good versus bad food. Food is just food, right? Like we, as a society, have put a lot of meaning into food, right? Like we are the ones that have categorized it as good or bad. But it's like the equivalent of if all you're eating every single day for like every single meal is just like green and leafy salads, right? Like you're missing out on like your carbohydrates, like you're missing out on other things that your body needs. Your body needs fats and sugars and things like that. So, but we have definitely pathologized food as being like harmful and bad.
What does that mean?
Pathologizing, pathologizing. it's like we've labeled it as like a disease, right? Like food is like we've pathologized it, like given it like a label as like harmful, bad.
Do you think any food I can name is bad?
If it's something that I'm allergic to, maybe it's bad.
No, like bad
because I
for
can't.
you. Like
it is bad for me.
No, anything like I can name. You won't say it's bad for you?
Do you want to play a game? Do you want to go ahead and give it a shot?
Sure. Lard.
Lard, like to cook with, or like I'm just drinking it?
Yeah, because like I mean, isn't there like a difference between you using like lard, using butter, and using like a spray or something?
So what I'm hearing you ask me is, are fats bad for you?
No, not just fats. I'm going on this.
Okay.
Lard, is that good for you?
I don't think it's good or bad. I think it is what it is. Some people cook for a lot of people in different cultures use it to cook.
What about heavily processed foods?
Heavily processed foods.
I'm talking like Beyond Meat.
Beyond Meat?
Yeah, like the alternative meat, like the vegan meat. Isn't there like
I have
so
some
much
of those in
chemicals?
my freezer right now.
Isn't there like so much chemicals and stuff?
I have so many of those in my freezer.
And those aren't bad.
Here I sit talking to you, my brain fully present in this moment because I have those for breakfast.
Soda.
So, Sprite. Shout out to Sprite.
Shout out to Sprite.
Shout out to
Not bad for you?
Well, caffeinated sodas are bad for me personally because I see a cardiologist. So I have to stay away from caffeine for a while, but I would not say that it would be bad for everybody.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was good foods and bad foods.
I love how I had an answer for all of these. I feel like I won. Did I win?
I think so.
What's my prize?
I think all the bad foods are. What's the word you used?
Pathology. I can't even remember the word. I was about to say. I was trying to say pathologized, but then I started saying psychology. I was like pathology.
Pathology. Yeah, you won. I can.
Yes.
So, with athletes, because I mean, a majority of my audience is athletes. What do you think is the best advice you could give to them?
I didn't realize the majority of your audience was athletes.
I would think so. Like, I gotta check the demographics for sure, but there is a big range of different types of people viewing. But I mean, I have various like coaches and athletes on my podcast, and then I film myself in the gym. So like, I think I could be wrong.
Yeah.
There are some like good amount of athletes that watch my content.
Yeah. What advice would I have for athletes? Like,
yes, because the bottom line I think the biggest struggle in the fitness community, from what I've experienced and what I've seen on other people, is eating habits. You know,
Mhm.
people want to bulk up, they want to shred, they gotta make weight for a powerlifting meet. Like, I've done all that, and it's just eating's the hard part. Lifting weights for 2 hours is not the hard part. I don't care what anybody says. It's the eating.
Yeah.
So I want to know like what you think, because we talked about people how obsessed they could become with eating the same thing every day. I know that's eating disorder. Huh?
Like obsessive with eating certain foods, every like the same.
Yeah, like
food
the
every
same
day.
thing every day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because like what I will say is that eating disorders are in order to diagnose eating disorders, a lot that goes into that, right?
Okay.
There's so many different assessments and things like that to be able to have like a diagnosed eating disorder. But what I will say is that the things that you're mentioning are like disordered eating, right? So like the difference between eating disorder and disordered eating is that most people are like disordered in their eating. Like fasting is a form of disordered eating. I know that one hurt your heart. That one really hurt your heart. And this is in no way like telling people what to do or what not to do. But like fasting and then eating like copious amounts of food to then like compensate for that, that is a form of disordered eating, because normalized eating is I'm listening to my body. Like I'm eating when I'm hungry, and when I'm full I'm stopping. I'm eating things that I crave every now and then, and I'm enjoying the food that I'm eating, and I'm not afraid to eat, right? So that's normalized eating. So once we start having disordered behaviors, disordered eating, like restricting, binging, that means that we've started to have somewhat of a complicated relationship with food. And so we are afraid of food, or we are putting labels or meanings to food. And so we're thinking foods like we have to stay away from certain foods, or if we eat a certain food, I have to exercise for this many minutes in order to like be okay with what I ate, instead of just being okay with it. So that's where we get into like disordered eating territory. Eating disorders, a lot more complicated. They are diagnosed. There's like very specific criteria to meet for an eating disorder.
And how would the treatment, I guess, differentiate in terms of like eating disorder and disordered eating?
Yeah, so people with eating disorders, they typically need a lot of help. There are different like levels of care for eating disorders, and what I will say is that people with disordered eating may not necessarily need treatment, right? They may not necessarily need medication, but people with eating disorders, their brain chemistry can change, so they do need medication to help with like the impacts of disordered eating to their brain. But people who do not have eating disorders may not necessarily need to take medications to get back, like to help counteract what's happening in their brain. But they could still use support, right? Like if they're afraid of food, they could always reach out to a pal, they could always still seek therapy, but they may not necessarily need to like go to a hospitalized like care setting to be able to work through that. But people with eating disorders, depending on the severity of that, sometimes they do have to be hospitalized, sometimes they do have to go to 24-hour care or weekly care.
That's like a huge difference though.
It's a huge difference.
I did want to bring up the fasting though.
Yeah, tell me.
Shattered my heart.
I know. I saw like in your eyes, like the glimmer left.
Yeah. The glimmer.
You're
coming up with words.
The sparkle in your eye just dissipated. It
Yes.
made me so sad.
No, it's fine. I gotta hear it. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I feel. I'm here to learn.
It does matter how you feel.
No, it doesn't.
It matters how you feel. Feelings are valid. All feelings are valid. I feel like I'm like Jim from The Office, just like constantly.
Just turning.
Like, just turning.
I've never seen The Office.
I've never seen The Office either. Now I'm a phony. No, I've never seen The Office either.
I never got into it. It's like the first couple episodes and all.
I've only ever seen clips of The Office.
Yeah, it's funny. I just can't sit down and watch it.
I can't. I'm too busy watching old episodes of Breaking Bad. Shout out to Breaking Bad.
So what's the deal with fasting? Break it down.
Break it down for you.
And like, just be blunt. I'm here to learn.
Okay.
I need to learn. Because if it's a bad thing, like you said, like I don't know why.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like we're not here to judge people who fast. Like people fast for many different reasons. People fast for religious purposes, right? But Shout out Jesus. I would really like it. I think what you can ask yourself, like it begs the question, why am I doing this? Like, why am I fasting? Am I fasting like this? Is this a religious purpose? Am I doing this because this is part of like my culture? This is part of like my belief system, and like this is like moral reasons? Am I doing this because like it's been approved by like a healthcare provider? Because I need to like have a procedure done? Or am I doing it to alter like my body in some way? Am I doing it because I am fearful? Like, am I doing it because I have certain beliefs about how my body should look? Or am I having beliefs about what food can do to my body and I want to get ahead of it so that food won't do the things that I'm afraid it's going to do to my body?
I'm taking this in. So it could be a good and a bad thing to fast. Is what I'm hearing?
I am not. I would say that you would need to talk to like a healthcare provider about that. And it's a big and many healthcare providers are very weight biased. So a lot of like doctors think, oh, well, you are higher weighted. Yeah, you should probably fast. So it can be really hard to even like, and maybe that is your own mind saying, see, my doctor agrees with me, I need to fast, it's a good thing. But there are doctors that are very, weight biased or size biased. They see you if you're in a larger body and say like, yeah, you can probably afford to do the fasting. But they don't know what's happening in your mind. They don't ask.
That's where you come in.
They don't ask the questions of what's happening in your brain right now, right? And so only you can really determine like what this is for, why I'm doing this, what are the lengths I'm willing to go to do this, and what's going to happen after this. Like, am I going to feel like normal? Because how far am I willing to go? How long am I going to take this? So
the most I did was 4
days.
4 days, only water. Day 4, no water, nothing entered my system.
Were you like hangry as hell?
Miserable.
I bet you. I'm sad for you. Like,
so it was November 31st, 2022. I was 5 days out from my very first powerlifting meet, and I was severely over the weight cap. The weight cap was 165, so I had to be 164.9 that morning. The week before the comp was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was a Thursday, and shout out to divorced parents and different families. Thursday had a Thanksgiving, Wednesday had a Thanksgiving, Thursday had a Thanksgiving, and Friday had a Thanksgiving. I was topped off at 179, 1 week before the comp.
I think I was there for that Thanksgiving, and I remember I was like, Rick, do you want some time?
I was like, I can't.
I was there for that Thanksgiving.
So it was that Saturday. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is horrible. And I was like, I have to fast. So I think the comp was on a Friday. It was on Thursday. One of those. I had those 4 days to fast, and I'd come to San Antonio, drove over here, not eating. I was with my guys came with me, my friends. So they were like, we're going out to eat everywhere. I was just sitting there. By day 4, it got to the point where I could smell water. We went to some wing place. I don't remember what.
We went to Wingstop. I was there.
No, that was after the comp.
Okay.
So the night before the comp, we went to some wing place, and I was like, oh, I'll just get a glass of water, and I left it there, and it dripping, I could smell it. I was like, oh, the water's so bad. Yeah. I woke up that for the comp, and I was at 162.3, so that's 13 pounds, 15, not like a week, not even a week.
Wow.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
I think I could do more though.
I would not
Maybe.
advise you
I don't
to.
think I could. I wouldn't, but I think I could.
Yeah.
I think the most I could do is 7, maybe.
Yeah.
Would you challenge me to do it?
I would never do that. I would never do that. I would feed you so much. I would love to feed you. But I mean, I think you said it yourself, right? Like, what was happening not only in your body, like physically what was going on for you, like you were feeling weak, you were feeling all these different things in your physical body, but also like what was going on in your mind. Like, you were angry, you were feeling like, you said the word miserable, I heard.
I think day 1, I was like, I'll get to the day, I'll sleep. It's easy. Like I was I was drinking a lot of water, so it was just there. And then day 2, I was feeling a little like snackish, maybe. Like I was like, I could eat this. And then that night too, we went out to eat, me and my friends, and I was like, damn, I'm really hungry. And all it was like, I was holding conversation, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm this close to ordering something, and just like, fuck it, I'll go over the weight. I don't even care. And then by day 3, I think day 3 was harder than day 4. Cause at day 3, it was just so like, I woke up feeling flat. Like I woke up on my back, and I just remember feeling like the flattest I've ever been, and felt so depleted. That's just the body. Like in my mind, I was like, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like what is this shit?
Yeah.
And then I was went out to eat. I was drinking water. It was fine, and I was very tired. And I felt really rude because I didn't care what anybody was telling me. Like my friends, they were like joking and stuff. And I was just there like, I gotta eat.
Yeah, you weren't even present.
I wasn't there.
And that's what happens in our minds too. Like when we're depriving our body of food, we start to obsess about food.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can have all the willpower in the world, but you will begin to obsess about food. That's all you'll be able to think about. Yeah. And then the moment you're given food, you'll lose control.
Yeah.
And that's what we say with like binging, right? We're going back to like binging disorder. When people binging starts with restricting, right? Like you've not given yourself, like you are refusing food for your body, and you're trying to like keep yourself from it can be anything, right? Like I like to use the example of like a cupcake. Yeah. Like let's say that you are so afraid to eat cupcakes because you're afraid that they're going to make you fat. Nothing wrong with being fat. But let's just say that you are so afraid to eat cupcakes because you're afraid they're going to do something horrible to you, that they're going to ruin your body, that so you cut them out of your diet completely. Like you're like, no more cupcakes because I can't have them because I lose control. Yeah. So you cut them out completely. What's going to start to happen is you're going to start to think about cupcakes a lot, or you're just going to start to crave them a lot more. You start to have cravings because you've removed them from your body completely.
This is about cupcakes, right?
About cupcakes.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Same goes for substances too. But you start to crave it because your body is wanting it. So then what happens the moment you are presented with a plate of cupcakes? Are you just gonna
killing it.
You're just gonna have one?
No.
You're gonna binge on those cupcakes. And because a few things happen like when they're presented with you, right? One, your cravings just like are just unable to be satiated, right? Like you have to have all of the cupcakes. And 2, your brain has already established the fact that you're not letting it have cupcakes, so now it has to hoard all of it because it doesn't know the next time you're going to have cupcakes again.
Is that like that's
exactly what happens, yes. And so what happens after that? You've just confirmed for yourself, see, I lose control when I eat cupcakes, so I can't have them anymore. So then you start to cut them out again. And then the cycle just kind of continues. So binging starts with restricting your body of things.
It's going back to day 4. It was easier because I had already become used to it. Mm-hmm. Still, I was so... Luckily, I got weighed in the morning. I woke up in the morning, and before the comp, I think it was 4:30, 5 in the morning, I was there with my coach. We got the official weight capped off at 162.6 or 162.4 or something. I was like, oh, I'm good. But as soon as I saw that number, I jumped off the scale. I ate everything I can just to like replenish myself. And I was eating I was eating bad food.
You were eating food that your body was really, really craving
Pop-Tarts.
and eating. Oh, I freaking love Pop-Tarts. I always have Pop-Tarts, right?
What flavor?
I really love the brown sugar Pop-Tarts. The best flavor.
What's that?
I mean, you can't really trust my judgment.
That was in elementary, like middle school, high school. I'm just oversaturated with it.
My favorite restaurant's Luby's, okay? Shout out to Luby's. I love Luby's. Cafeteria style, baby. I love Luby's. And so, like, I'm probably the worst, like, person to judge, like, what a best
I like
flavor
the Sunday
is.
ones.
Those are good when you put them in the refrigerator for a while. When you put them in the freezer.
You're supposed to pop them in the toaster.
No, but if you freeze them, they're also good. Agree to disagree.
Are they cookies and cream ones? The cookies and cream ones?
Those are good too. My brother really likes the wild berry ones. Apparently, they don't really sell those everywhere.
The ones with like the
zigzag.
Yeah.
They don't. Apparently, they don't sell them everywhere. So.
I haven't tried those.
That's right. I have them in my house right now.
I had Jolly Rancher ones.
After this, we can go get some.
So stuff like that, Pop Tarts.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what those. I had a lot of rice cakes. Love those. A lot of Gatorade. Zero. Sure. I don't know why.
Yeah, your body was definitely craving those electrolytes, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then I ended up doing really bad at the comp because I was so out of it mentally and physically, obviously, because of that. But I mean, I think it goes back to me. I had so much time to prepare for that comp, and I just got lazy. The holidays came around, which I knew they were coming around, and it all just stacked on me. So it was pretty bad. But I hope to redeem myself this year. And
in a healthy way, I'm sure.
Yeah, now that I have a help of a specialist, you know. Where's I going with that? How do you think I can fix that now? Just plan ahead, get better. I'm sure a lot of athletes do that.
Fix what exactly?
What went wrong there?
Fix like the fasting to try to like you don't. It sounds to me like you don't want to do that anymore. Like you're not wanting to.
Not really, because like you said, my mind was craving a lot of stuff. So now that the day we got Wingstop.
Yeah.
After I had Wingstop, was driving home, stopped at Stripes, got so many like candies, Gatorades, and like drinks. Got home, went to HEB, bought groceries that I love again, and I was eating. So I was again 162.
Let me ask you something.
Good.
As you were like buying all the stocking your fridge with like actual food, how did that make you feel?
Amazing.
I know you like what did I say, shimmer? No, the spark.
You said
the glimmer, and then I said the
Glimmer.
spark. The spark came back in your eye as you were saying, I was happy. This is what we call a breakthrough moment in therapy.
My intervention. Yes, I was very happy because I missed everything, and I know I wasn't buying stuff like for what I needed. It's what I wanted. I was grabbing the random stuff, and then within a month, I went back up to like 185 or like 190. It's pretty bad. Now I'm weighing like 210, 205.
And I think also it's important, and I am not a registered dietitian. I work very closely with dietitians. I have to in my profession. I would always say like consulting with a dietitian is very important. Not just like your physician and saying like, oh, should I do this?
Yeah.
But really talking to like a dietitian about like what is going to nourish you in the best way. I work with eating disorder dietitians though, so they are also part of the there's no such thing as good or bad. They're anti-diet dietitians, which are few and far between.
Anti-diet.
I'm an anti-diet clinician, so I never ever would encourage anyone to go on a diet.
Really?
Because dieting is actually one of the biggest risk factors to the development of an eating disorder. So I don't ever encourage dieting because you never know who's at risk of an eating disorder. A really big part of eating disorders are actually genetic. So you
I was
actually
ask you that's a genetic thing or not.
genetic, huge genetic component to eating disorders. So you actually don't know if like there is someone who you say like, oh yeah, you should probably go on a diet, and they start, and then like that triggers the predisposition to an eating disorder. So we shouldn't really be giving dieting advice to anybody. But I'm gonna get a lot of hate for
I
that.
know you are.
They're like, shut the computer, we're done. Cut the show.
Yeah, I clip that, by the way.
Don't clip it. Don't clip it. Dieting. No dieting. And I'm okay getting like the heat for it. Getting, I'm okay with that, right? Because that's my philosophy. I'm an anti-diet clinician, and we have anti-diet dietitians who are also clinicians. Just because it's something that we've had a lot of experience in dealing with, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless, you're gonna get hate either way. We're both saying things that are like,
bring it.
not everybody's gonna agree with.
I love you.
Just be nice in the comment.
I love you.
So with this whole, now you have a new office. I do think it's way too early to ask this question. But what is the end game with all of this?
What is the end game like for?
Do you want to do this until you retire, or do you think you could see yourself retiring from this?
Oh
in the
my
future?
gosh!
Like,
When you said retire, that made me uncomfortable.
Why?
That's crazy because I see myself working like forever.
Oh, okay, that's what I want to hear.
I love to work. You can ask Rob.
Yeah.
I love to work. I enjoy it. I don't know. I can't really think of like what the end game would be for me, right? Because I do like even in this private practice, like this is not super great for business, but it's great for just like what I believe in. But like I do a lot of sliding scale, so I see people who don't really have the funds to be able to afford like a therapist that's a specialist in eating disorders, and I'll offer sliding scale and see them for pretty cheap because it's not really about the money, right? Like I want people to be well, and eating disorders have the second highest mortality rate out of any mental illness. So we have what is the number now? I'll say every hour. Every hour someone dies from an eating disorder. So by the time we have completed this episode, someone
died. In the world or United States or Texas or San Antonio? What's the stat?
Oh no, I hope not. In out there in the world, yeah.
Wow. That's the second. You said the second.
Second highest mortality rate out of mental illness.
So in a way, it's like, this is kind of like what the conversation I have with my coach on my podcast. He's made well enough money to even care, but it's just the relationships he builds with people. It's just like you can't put a price on that. Mm-hmm. He dug deep into his podcast saying like it's really different what he's doing because he prefers in-person training because again the relationship. You could have easily not had any of this, work from home, and made like Google forms to send out, like just to help people like there. But seeing them in person is different because you get the feedback of like, oh, now my life is better. Like now I feel better. Now I can be with my family. I'm more confident. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. So in a way, it's like you are coaching people.
Yeah, coaching is a good word. Because we're, they're a big part of like, for eating disorder treatment. It's the therapy is a big piece, but if you're treating someone who's malnourished, there's not a whole lot that talk therapy can do.
Yeah.
So sometimes it involves coaching them to actually eat the food, right? And I've had to do a lot of that, like pick it up, take a bite, kind of thing. How are you feeling right now? That's scary. Let's take some deep breaths. Pick it up, take a bite. So yeah.
And without giving out too much information, I do want to know like the biggest turnaround story you've ever had with a patient, if you don't mind me asking.
Turnaround story. Yeah, I probably can't share too much information about that. Can't give any demographic information.
Oh yeah, that for sure. Or at least something like you witnessed in this field that's like.
Yeah, I mean something I've witnessed is that relapse is very common for eating disorder patients. I've had patients that have relapsed 4, 5, 6 times in their eating disorder and have to come back to treatment. Mm-hmm. And I've seen patients who have just been so hopeless that they're going to be able to have a normal life in recovery. And then I've seen them do just that. And I think that in of itself is like a huge success when you've just stopped believing in yourself and you've started to just believe your eating disorder. And also when we talk about eating disorders, we talk about like, is this you or is this your eating disorder? Because the eating disorder really is, it's a mental illness, so it's like, takes over the brain, right? It makes you believe things that are not true. So they start to believe things that are not true, and they're so corrupted by it. It's very manipulative, the illness, and so it's really beautiful when they're able to diffuse from that, and they're able to just be themselves and actually recover it. So I would say like any sort of person that is going through the process and who gets out of that cycle of like constant relapse is really awesome to witness.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the most, the right word to use is I think beautiful stories. To think that there's people that just lose hope and then they're like turn their life around essentially. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that goes back to like my coach is doing. There's people that went to him that were even thought about going to the gym and they just just felt horrible with themselves, and then to see that evolution and see them change for the better, or like help themselves, is one of the most, like I said, beautiful things you can even think of. You know what I mean? And I feel like not a lot of people, this field that you're in isn't exactly the biggest in terms of exposure, or like the realization like this happens, like this goes on. You know what I mean? So to hear that, whether someone's listening on this podcast or gets clipped or something like that, it's good that it's more known, like what goes on. You don't just show up for like a diet or something like that because you're after that.
Yeah, we're into diet, and any sort of, like, regardless of eating disorder, we never prescribe diets for anybody. Like, we're weight inclusive, we're size inclusive. But yeah, like, I think it's important to also understand that there are some people, like those who are predisposed to eating disorders, that, you know, the best way to be able to get off of this constant loop that you're stuck in is to just accept yourself. Acceptance is really important, right? Like, accept the fact that a diet's not going to work for you. Accept the fact that that your body is good enough. Accept the fact that your mind is good enough, and that you're more than just a body. You're more than just a pretty face, like, you know. And I think a really important thing to recognize also, like, as we were kind of talking about athletes and identity, if you introduce yourself as an athlete and that's how you identify, like, that's great. You know, like, I used to identify as an athlete at one point. I started this off by identifying as a therapist, because that's a really big part of my identity. And so it can be really, really heartbreaking if you are an athlete with an eating disorder and you're having to step away from that, or no longer identify as an athlete. Like, if your sport is something that is toxic to you, then it's really sad to have to, like, grieve
and let go.
And so, and that is, I'm not saying all, but that is the case for some bodybuilders, right? Like, having to step away from that, having to grieve that, and find other ways to feel whole and discover new parts of your identity that aren't just that. I mean, I think I'd be really, really sad if I couldn't be a therapist anymore, right? Because we're here. We are here, and I love it. I'd be really, really sad. I'd have to grieve that for a really long time, and discover something that would still make me feel good, right?
Yeah, and then, like, you're so deep and passionate about this that it's hard to just, like, let go. Yeah, like, somewhat related topic. There was a time where I guess life was stopping me from making content, and in my heart I was like, I can't. Like, should I give up? Is this even worth it? And then I was like, no. Like, I've been doing this for fun since I was 5th grade, 8th grade. I don't really know what content was, because I mean, I used to just do funny videos on my mom's laptop back in the day, and then I first started making videos on my sister's Samsung tablet. It was like 240p or something like that. It was just so bad. It's just, I remember recording gameplay videos. Like, I'd set up the tablet to face the TV, and it would record the TV, but you'd see the static lines go down, and you would be moving. But I'm like, hey y'all, welcome back to another video.
Please tell me that those are still floating on
the internet. I don't know. I hope
somewhere. I really, y'all, we need to find these videos, and they need to resurface.
It's Beverly's tablet.
I want old content.
It's pretty bad.
Bev, if you're listening.
when I made the channel first, I did have so many videos that were doing, like, well, but then there was a phase, like, in 9th grade, I'm like, I gotta restart. Everything's cringe. I deleted everything, and to this day, I regret that heavily. My first video that popped off. It was when bottle flipping was a thing.
Oh, the water bottle?
Yeah.
Nice.
It was like a weird compilation where I would just throw it, and then it cut to the bottle just landing. So I would, like, throw it across the baseball field, and it would just.
Cute.
I think the video was like, haters will say it's Photoshop or something like that, and had, like, cool.
You were so cool, Brendan. You're so cool.
I've been on topic. I rambled there. But well, what I said about, like, how long you can do this, I mean, I feel like there's no time, there's no set time that you can sit back and, like, Hey, when I'm done. I mean, you meet people along the way, and I feel like this is a never-ending job. Same thing with coaches. Like you see coaches in professional sports that are like pushing 80 and they're still doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like this job, especially in this field of work, there's just no end to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good though. You love it. You're passionate about it.
I love it.
So
I do. And I will also say that like just the eating disorder community and just like the work that I do has been like just really healing for myself. Just super healing, and I've, I'm eternally grateful for like the eating disorder community. And so I will say, for anyone that like wants to cancel me already or wants to like shut off this video or may have already shut off this video, what I will say is that, if something that like has been discussed, like, oh, there's no such thing as bad foods, and if that's something that really like upset you or concerned you to hear, I would maybe just look inward a little bit and say like, what about that bothered me, and am I willing to learn a little bit more about that perspective? Because I will say that if that did bug you, if you already like decided, nope, she's wrong, that's not true, that is rigidity, right? And like we can be more flexible about our thinking, just like we're like two very different like perspectives here. We've been able to have like a back and forth conversation. There's not been any judgment here.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's why in the beginning I said I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
Not just learn facts, but learn perspective as well. I think I will preach this for sure. Like the podcast isn't an interview. It's more of a conversation. It's just I'm meeting the person in front of me. Not because of like what they do, but who they are. That's why I think it's different.
Yeah.
So even though like you might have your viewpoint, I'm gonna question it because I question everyone's viewpoints because I have mine. So I'm like, why does this person think like this?
Mm-hmm.
How did they get there? And then like, how can I understand it more?
Yeah.
Because I'm real big on like when there's disagreements in any discussion, I gotta figure out like why this person thinks this way, and like how I can understand it better. Because one movie quote that I always think of is people hate what they don't understand. It's Batman vs Superman.
Wait, who's
Batman vs Superman. Fucking love that movie.
I was like, how philosophical? Who said that?
It's not. It's Superman's mom. And I don't know why. There's movie quotes like that I can quote all day. I think about that all the time. Whenever I'll talk sports with the guys or science, things like this, or even with my coach, or any even politics. Like whenever it comes up, I gotta know like people's beliefs and why they think this way. Because I question everything.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no set way to be.
Yeah.
And I'm really open with like for discussion.
I love being open for discussion. And again, like it's all good, no judgment. Like, what I always tell like my clients that I see is that if it's like, oh well, I'm really proud of like that workout that I did. I'm like, okay, well, what about that? Who are you proud of? And it usually comes down to like a feeling. I felt strong. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that you felt strong, that you see yourself as a strong person. So it wasn't necessarily like the workout itself. It was like the fact that you wanted to feel good, you wanted to feel happy, you wanted to feel accomplished and strong. And what are other ways that you can also obtain that, right? So like, yeah, I'm an athlete, and you're also a smart person. You're also a very, driven person. You're also someone who your friends love. So also being able to explore other parts of yourself and other things that make you a good person. And world peace.
Do you think, has it ever happened to you where someone comes to you for help and then rejects it when the time comes?
All the time.
All the time?
All
Is
the
that
time.
bad?
There's no good or bad, right? Like people.
Or that often? There you go. That's what I should have said. Is that often?
I mean, yeah, like it happens. Like I think that here's a great example. Like I like to think of like when you first decide to do something really scary. Like if you're gonna go on this like huge roller coaster, like this amusement park ride that you've never done before. You're gonna hype yourself up and be like, yeah, I'm ready, I'm gonna do it. And maybe you get to the top and you're like, nope.
Okay.
And like, there's no judgment for that. Like, you have no idea how this ride is gonna go. You have no idea. And so like, yeah, that's pretty terrifying. And it's okay for like you to turn back and say, I am not ready to do it this time. And there's no judgment for that,
Well,
right?
that's what you're there for, to hold their hand and guide them
To guide you and say like, here's what you can expect. Like, let's take it one step at a time, kind of thing. There are some people though that don't have that choice sometimes, right? Like children with eating disorders. There are children with eating disorders. We're seeing it very young now, which is very unfortunate. Children with eating disorders don't necessarily have a choice sometimes. It has to be their parents to make the difficult decision to like go to the hospital, go to treatment, things like that. But I mean, it makes total sense that when, you know, you're finally there, that it doesn't feel right,
Right.
or it's too scary.
You think it's because like that's all they've known for like that period of time, and it's just like a big change for them. Like their whole life is gonna change, and they're just like not ready for that. I think.
Yeah, I think, you know, going back to like eating disorders in themselves, your eating disorder could easily tell you that you're fine and that I'm the enemy. Eating disorders are known, especially restrictive eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, is known to be a delusional disorder. So, anorexia nervosa is known to be a delusional disorder. And so your eating disorder can easily tell you, oh, she's out to get you, she just wants to hurt you, she doesn't want you to be happy. And that's what's going on to that person's mind. Whereas I know I'm not a bad person, I know I can help you. And, right, like if you are so attached to your eating disorder, it feels like your best friend sometimes. If you are so used to your eating disorder talking to you and you listening to it, it's going to be really hard for you to trust some rando, right? Like you're gonna choose your eating disorder.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's just because you and your mind are set in that way. It's like, it's scary.
It's really scary.
But like what we said earlier, it's beautiful when people change for the better. Even though it's because one, getting over that mental hump of like starting new and then helping themselves out. Like I said, it's a roller coaster. It's gonna have ups and downs, but it's gonna get to the end.
Yeah, and it's going to suck.
Yeah.
I am very honest with people. I'm like, oh yeah, of course this is gonna suck. Is it gonna hurt? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be painful? Absolutely. It is. It's gonna be uncomfortable?
But that's
very
like,
uncomfortable.
That's like anything anybody wants to get better at.
Yeah. You are gonna have to go through very raw emotions. I have an onion metaphor. Can I share it with you? So like, you've seen the movie Shrek, right?
No.
What?
I've never seen Shrek.
Cut the show.
Never seen Shrek.
I'm done.
Never seen Shrek.
Oh my gosh.
I'm playing. Yes, I've seen Shrek.
Okay, do you know that part in Shrek where Shrek...
Onions are Shrek. I mean, ogres are like onions, right?
Yes. He's like, oh gosh, so I like onions. Onions
Yeah.
have layers.
Yeah.
So I like to think, and I give this metaphor all the time,
Uh-huh.
that eating disorders are a lot like onions. Well, mental illness in general is a lot like an
Okay.
onion.
Okay.
But eating disorders, it's a lot like an onion. There are many, many layers to an eating disorder. And there's usually like a deeper rooted problem there. But the person who's experiencing it has become so fearful of addressing that problem, doesn't want to touch it, doesn't want to go there, so they will put layers on themselves and they'll do everything in their power to not address it. So maybe the layer is, the layers are the eating disorder behaviors, right? So if you allow me to peel those layers away from you, I could get down to that deeper issue. We can travel that road together. But you know, the layers are like, if I take away your ability to binge, to purge, to restrict, to over-exercise, to engage in substances, to self-harm, if I take all of that away, slowly but surely, we peel layer by layer, we could get there, but it doesn't feel good to have your layers peeled off of you. They're there for a reason, right? They're there because you were in pain, and so you did it to not feel that pain. But now I'm going to take that away, and you're going to feel very raw emotions, and we're going to work together. And I tell people that when I first start working with them, to get them to understand that it's going to suck, and it's going to be painful, and it's also going to be insightful and potentially beautiful for you if you allow yourself to get there.
It's great to hear. Like it just shows. It even adds to the layer of the end product when people have already like bettered themselves and like changed. It took all that, and for it to get to that point when they're better, it's just like look at the progress they've made.
Mm-hmm.
And is there like again, I don't know how this
Mm-hmm.
practice works. Is there a way to like track? How do you like track somebody's progress? I think is the right way to say.
I mean, it's very like longitudinal, right? Like you're supposed to like kind of just follow people throughout the journey.
Yeah.
I will just clarify, there is no cure for eating disorders.
Okay.
Right, there's no cure. So it's not like, oh, you're done, you don't have anorexia anymore, or no, you don't have bulimia anymore.
Yeah.
There is no cure. There is only maintenance and recovery. So it's the similarity between like substance use disorder, right? So like if you have alcoholism, like that's why people stay in sobriety for so long. They abstain from substances for so long, but they still have a substance use problem, right? They still have a problem. And the same goes for eating disorders, right? Like you abstain from your eating disorder behaviors. Or sometimes you engage in them here and there. That's common. That happens all the time. That doesn't mean you're not recovered still, or you're not in the process of recovery. That just happens. But I have to clarify that. There's no cure. I have to have that really hard conversation a lot where I have to tell people, oh, there is no cure for your illness. And they're like,
So then, what would you tell somebody who would say, if there's no cure, what's the point in treatment?
there is no cure and there is relief, right? So like right now you're feeling in pain and there's no point to this. And you're so afraid that if you go this route you're going to feel pain, but you already are feeling pain. Like you're already in pain, you're already suffering, you're already having to deal with this. I'm providing you ways to feel relief from this pain, and to have a life worth living. So there's, but that's a good point, because a lot of people do come in and they're just like, what's the point of this if there's no cure for it?
Yeah.
A lot of parents actually,
for their kids?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
they're like, well, what's the point? No, there's gotta be, right? They're desperate for a cure. But those are hard conversations to have for sure.
And I'm trying to think of something else, because I'm pretty sure I think I learned everything I wanted to, and more, obviously. But
You want to do like a little recap of what you learned?
don't do that to me. There's no eating disorder cure.
There's no cure.
There's no good or bad foods.
No good or bad.
Um,
Your bros are gonna hate you for that.
what do you mean, why?
Your bros are gonna just be like, how dare you? How dare you let her win?
No, I'm learning. I gotta know.
There is no winning either. I'm trying to win here.
You said earlier that you won.
I did win I won the game.
Yeah,
we
you
were
did,
playing.
you did. But what is a message, like one message that you can put out to everyone right now in terms of eating disorders?
In terms of eating disorders.
Yes, or like anything in general, If you're not canceled by the end of this podcast.
If I'm not canceled by the end of this podcast.
Okay.
Well, this one's really, really important. So maybe you can start the podcast with this.
I want to clip it, put it in the beginning.
Good.
Wow.
The most important thing to note and to remember, you cannot, and I am a specialist, I'm a specialist in eating disorder treatment. Some people would call me an expert. I don't like to call myself an expert. I'm a specialist.
So kind of title it like eating disorder expert?
You can,
Specialist?
I mean.
How would you prefer it? Go ahead.
Specialist.
Okay.
I identify as a specialist, but a lot of people say that I'm an expert. I don't believe in being an expert in anything personally, but I'm a specialist, so
Yeah.
I can't even do this. There is no way for you to be able to tell that a person has an eating disorder just by looking at them. There is no
That's
way to
interesting.
tell. And that is because we have a very, I wanted to cuss, we have a
No,
very,
you can.
very messed up way. Like we have
What were you gonna say?
we have a very distorted way of viewing illness, and it's very stigmatized.
Yeah.
So whenever we think about eating disorders, we think of like that very emaciated girl who's looking in a mirror and sees like a much larger person in the mirror, and like that's eating disorders, right? That's plastered everywhere. That's all we've ever really known about eating disorders for a very long time. That's all I knew, is that like, oh, very, very thin people who think that they're not thin, right? And there's so much more to that. So the majority of people with eating disorders are actually normal weight. they're average weighted.
Really?
Yeah, there's a very small percentage of people that are actually underweight that have eating disorders. And so it's important for us to remember that we cannot tell. Like, there's just no way. Like, I've been doing this for a while now. There's no way. You cannot spot a person with an eating disorder. The person that you're sharing an elevator with, like, that you decide to, like, make a comment on their body or something like that, you don't know that they're actually going through their own eating disorder recovery. And so I think it's really, and there's so much shame and secrecy, and people, not enough people seek treatment from eating disorders. They die from their eating disorders. And so in order for us to really, like, break the shame and the secrecy of it, we need to be mindful, and we need to have, stop talking about people's bodies, one. Like, stop making comments about people's bodies, stop making comments about people's size and weight and all that. You have no idea what people are going through.
So you think that's the number one reason people don't look in, I guess the right word is to look into the disorders, because of shame?
There's a lot of shame and secrecy. A lot of shame and secrecy about eating disorders. Like, eating disorders have historically been what people believe are illnesses of choice, right? Like, you did this to yourself. The reason you have an eating disorder is because you did it. It's your fault. And that is entirely untrue. Like, I am here today to tell you that is entirely untrue. So untrue. Like, if people could cause their eating disorders to happen and they actually had that kind of control, wouldn't they be able to, like, stop it?
Stop that.
And they don't. They die, right? And so, like, no one wants to die from an eating disorder. And so I think it's important to just, like, remember all of those things. And eating disorders are not an illness of choice. They're a serious mental illness. They impact the brain in so many different ways.
I'm trying to think how this would look. Do you think you see a world where people are more open about it? Or they're more like willing to look into it? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure you know from our home area.
Boy, do I.
We as the people down there, we're like, doctor. They don't look into anything.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do you think there's any possible way it could be more open? Eating disorders could be, like, more open or more looked into by the person themselves.
Yeah. By continuing to watch this video and not closing yourself off to those possibilities that they're of learning something new. Shout out to the Rio Grande Valley, okay? I'm from the Rio Grande Valley and I turned out great.
Yeah,
And it
awesome.
is, I love visiting, it's the best place ever, it's my favorite, I miss home all the time. But it's just such a taboo thing down there, right? Like, mental illness in general is just not something. And it's not because the valley's bad, right? It's not because, like, we're ill-informed and we don't care. I say we because I'm still down there.
Yeah.
Like, it's not because of any of those things, right? It's because we are such a great community of people who want to take care of each other and not want other people to get involved in our community. Like, I want to let me take care of you. No, I will heal you. I will do what I can to make you better. And that's beautiful. That's great. That's such a strength to want to, like, come together to help people. And I think that's really common for our culture, right? Like, we don't want other people to, like, meddle in our business. Like, we help our own.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really great thing. And I think that accepting help and learning new things could really benefit our culture too, because our culture is not exempt from eating disorders and mental illness. There are so many people down there that struggle and suffer every single day. So the valley is not exempt to any of this.
Yeah.
Eating disorders don't discriminate. Mental illness does not discriminate.
Yeah. I guess for the closest statements, I gotta ask, how do you think this product's been?
It's been so fun.
What do you think? Like you think the watch time is gonna, like? Oh, she said something stupid. And like, oh.
Yeah, fuck her. Maybe I don't know.
It's
I've been called. I have a very thick skin, and the reason for that is because I work with patients with eating disorders, and they can be really mean sometimes. They can be real mean sometimes. I've been called every name in the book. And parents, right? People who are fearful and like they reject the things that you have to say. They're scared to learn new things, right? Like your belief system being challenged. Oh my God. When I first started working with eating disorders, I was the most ignorant person. I said inappropriate things. I I definitely did not practice appropriately. Because I'm like, oh yeah, just drink some water if you're hungry. I'm like, oh my god. Looking back on that, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that. Like, oh my gosh, I hope that person's well. Like, I had the same beliefs and I said the same things. And looking back on that, like, I don't shame myself, like saying like, oh my god, you sucked. It was just like, oh wow, you had a lot to learn and here you are now. But my beliefs were very different then than they are now. And that's okay. It's okay for your beliefs to change.
Yeah, maybe they could be a takeaway from people watching or listening on Spotify and YouTube. You know? I had to plug it.
Slap that subscribe button.
But we're about to pass the hour mark, so I did want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, can I plug my practice?
You can't, no, anything, yeah. I was going to ask you if you want to plug anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sonatus Counseling here in San Antonio. We're pretty great. I think we're pretty lovely people. And we specialize, well, I specialize in the treatment of eating disorders. And we have other wonderful clinicians here who specialize in trauma. One clinician that's going to be on another one of your podcast episodes.
The next episode, yeah.
To talk all about trauma, which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, and he would not touch eating disorders with a 10-foot pole. So it works out. We stay in our lane. But yeah, Sonatus Counseling, we're very, very proud and privileged to be here.
Is there a link I could put in the description? Oh, there is?
Yes,
okay.
yes, we do have a website. Rob, one of our my co-pilot here, worked really hard on that website. It's amazing. So
Okay, cool. I'll put that.
go check it out.
Um,
We offer telehealth and in-person services.
telehealth?
Yes, we offer telehealth services.
What is
So
that?
virtual counseling.
Oh, okay.
And in person.
I was going to guess that. Any closing statements before we go?
I don't think Saul Goodman was the greatest character on Breaking Bad. And we're out of time.
He was amazing.
Jesse Pinkman was way better than Saul. And Mike, my boy Mike.
There's a reason he got a show. That's all I got to say.
It's okay. It's fine. Post Malone, if you ever watch this, we love you.
I'm going to get him on the pod.
We are
I'm
your
gonna- I'm telling you
biggest
this now.
fans, and we love you so much.
I got this tat. I don't know if you remember me.
Post Malone.
I'm going to tag him on it. I'm going to get him on the pod and you're invited. I met her because of Post Malone, right?
You met Post Malone because of me?
No, I met you because of Post Malone.
You met me because our families are merged.
Oh, I said something about Post Malone and Brian's like, oh, have you met Nicki? She likes Post Malone. But I don't even know a Nicki anymore, Miss Chris.
Oh yeah, we're back to that.
Yeah.
Full circle.
But anyway, thank you for watching or listening on Spotify. Like and subscribe if you're new here. Thank you, Nicki, again for coming on the show.
Thanks for,
Thank you, Chris.
thanks for having me.
And peace.